So now I am speaking to you as the chair of the National Zero Waste Council, and that council is actually the sponsor of this session on food waste. And I'm very pleased to be talking about our reduction strategy. Many of you will know that the National Zero Waste Council is a national leadership initiative bringing together governments, businesses, and non-government organizations who work collaboratively to advance waste prevention in Canada. We focus on the design, the production, and the use of goods. Now, Shelley mentioned some of these statistics here. We designated as a council that food waste is a key area of interest because of its enormous economic and environmental and social costs. So, for instance, in Canada, 35 to 40% of the food that is produced is never eaten by humans. Just think of that. 35 to 40% of the food. And if you look to the global situation, Shelley mentioned over $100 billion, $31 billion we estimate to be the actual value of the product, but it well more than triples to the higher number if we consider all the associated costs of everything, all the resources, the energy, the land, the labor, etc., the water that went into making that product. And you should note that food-related landfill greenhouse gas emissions are greater than those from the petroleum refining sector, from the pipelines, or from the conventional mining. So overall, the quest for a circular economy in Canada is significantly compromised by our levels of food waste. So last year, as has been mentioned, at this conference, the Zero Waste Council proposed a national plan of action on food waste, and it was premised on collaboration. The strategy incorporates best practices from other North American and European contexts, while it considers strategies that could be implemented throughout value chains by multiple players working together. The strategy is organized into actions in three different areas. Firstly, we have policy changes by all levels of government. Secondly, we have innovation in technology, infrastructure, and community organization, as well as behavior change from consumers on up through the supply chain. And while we thought going into the strategy that we had a pretty comprehensive strategy informed by some leaders in the world, we also talked at length to our own food waste champions and our stakeholders. This would confirm that our plan was in step with rising local action, that it included initiatives with which people could engage, and that we had included the full spectrum of tools that could be utilized in a Canadian context. As a result, since last year's conference, we spoke with over 900 stakeholders right across the country. We co-hosted workshops and webinars with cities such as Calgary, Edmonton, and Montreal, provincial agencies such as Recycle Quebec and Divert Nova Scotia, as well as organizations like Sustain Ontario. We also posted an online survey while we worked with a consulting agency to conduct one-on-one interviews with leaders in business, academia, and the social sector. What we wanted to know was, what are the priority actions for the national strategy? What emerging Canadian initiatives could be leveraged? What are the barriers that might hamper successful food waste prevention and reduction, as well as with whom should we collaborate in order to advance our actions? And we got extensive feedback, of course. The feedback we received stated that the strategy was well received. Stakeholders noted that a Canada-wide strategy to focus on food waste is long overdue, and that the Zero Waste Council has a crucial role to play as a convener. People also told us that they want the strategy to focus more upstream, so on the waste prevention side of things, around how it is supporting a transition to a circular value chain. They wanted clarity on the definition of food waste, a realistic national target based on good data, measurement, and monitoring, as well as a diversity of fiscal tools, not just a tax incentive. People also wanted the strategy to build the capacity of organizations in the charitable sector, such as through donation guidelines and improvements in infrastructure, instead of viewing the charitable sector as an endpoint. They want to encourage support for behavior change, education, as well as communication, while including actions that would build nationwide regulatory harmonization, particularly around those best before dates. So while our stakeholder engagement confirmed the need for our strategy, people will get behind it if they aren't already doing so through their own initiatives. It also demonstrated that the strategy needed some changes. Our new food loss and waste strategy will include a greater diversity of actions that build upon each other. We will clarify how we are working with the waste hierarchy and focusing upstream. As collaboration is both a process and an end goal, broad support will provide the backbone for the strategy. And again, we certainly know that work needs to focus on those best before dates. So in terms of next steps, revisions to the strategy are now underway, and accompanied by a strong implementation plan, a further iteration will be available early next year. But one of the most critical elements of all this work, that of building true collaboration, is already well underway. Next year, the Zero Waste Council and Provision Coalition, which is the Canada's food and beverage manufacturers, will be bringing business and government together through a joint approach to dialogue, research, education, and policy. We plan to repeat these collaborative relationships right across the country, thus advancing the vision of preventing and reducing food waste. Also in connection with next steps, we've begun the work on initiatives for which stakeholders expressed support. We hope to soon produce a national set of food donation guidelines for businesses and receiving organizations. These should include reference to the various provincial Good Samaritan Acts. And for the past year, the Council has additionally been working closely with WRAP UK on a Canadian version of WRAP's successful consumer education behavior change campaign. We're pleased to announce that early next year, 2018, the Council will launch Love Food, Hate Waste Canada, which promises to be a national collaboration project that will bring together government, business, and other stakeholders to reduce household food waste. This national campaign may sound familiar to some, as it's based on a pilot project that Metro Vancouver introduced to the local market in 2015. So that's where we are with the National Food Waste Reduction Strategy. We're interested in your feedback. We want to hear from you. We're here today if you've got any comments or questions, or you can come to us directly at Metro Vancouver. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.